the viola has the same tuning as the cello, but one octave higher, and just that open C string where you can feel your organs vibrating is like a feeling that you won't really get with the violin. You get many other feelings, really, like being able to
soar,
but that the depth and like the belly of that, the C string with the cello is quite amazing.
It's like two bears having a conversation.
Life Reimagined with Stacey Ray.
Hi, it's Stacey, and I've got a request for you. Before we get into this episode, I would love for you to like, share, subscribe. It really helps us out. This past October, while I was in Oman, I had the incredible privilege of meeting the Ayoub Sisters, a Scottish-Egyptian classical crossover duo celebrated for blending Western classical music with pop, Arabic, and world music traditions. Sarah on the cello and piano, and Laura on the violin and piano are two of the most fascinating young women I've ever met. Now, before you say to classical music, I want you to know this. They broke onto the international music scene when their instrumental cover of Uptown Funk gained viral traction online and caught the attention of producer Mark Ronson. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, please help me welcome Sarah and Laura to the podcast today. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
It is so awesome to see you lovely girls, ladies, women.
All of the above.
To me, you're girls. Yeah, right, exactly. I haven't seen you since October when we were in Oman.
Yes, that's right. I was just thinking when that was in deepest, darkest Muscat. Yes, when we first met.
Yes. You came and joined us for dinner, which was so awesome. And of course, I monopolized all your time, but that's okay. You know, I want to tell you, it's a good thing that I didn't make arrangements to come to your symphony opening because I had the flu for over 8 weeks. And
oh gosh,
I would have had to cancel anyway. So, boo-hoo. I missed it, but I want to hear all about it. So, thanks so much for agreeing to come on the show today. I'm so excited to talk to you both.
It's so good to see you.
So, we should take attendance for our audience, right? Sarah, raise your hand.
Hello.
Laura, raise your hand.
Hello.
There we go. Now everybody knows who you are. So, I want to talk first about your incredible journey to even become musicians, because we had started to talk about that when we met in Oman, and you both found a love for music and such a similar love. So, how did that transpire as you were children and growing up?
By total accident. As children, you try everything from sports to dance to music.
Yes.
And we fell into it, and we fell in love with music from a very early age. And it wasn't planned. It was just total curiosity.
Well, now, and adding to this conversation is you grew up in Glasgow, but you are of Egyptian descent. Your parents were both Egyptians who moved to Glasgow. And so was there an expectation from your family that you would do something else with your lives, or were they 100% supportive of the music gig, or what was that like?
So there is quite commonly an expectation in Arabic families to follow certain career paths. We personally come from a long line of doctors, and there was an expectation and a hope that we would follow in Dad's footsteps in particular. And it was quite challenging for a few years of my life in particular, I'd say from the age of 14 to 17, that crucial time when you're at school and you're taking in Scotland, they're called your standard grades and your hires and your advanced hires. Those are the exams that really matter and determine if you are able to go to university, then which one. And I found certain subjects really interesting, like biology and chemistry and maths. And for those reasons, my dad was kind of like, right, she's going to be the one that follows in my footsteps. And
Dr. Laura.
His little doctor. He used to call me that, actually.
Yeah.
And I actually spent several weeks in hospitals doing work experience, shadowing doctors, junior doctors. And it was not an easy choice for me at all, because I loved music, but I also really loved academics. And I think I had an inherent wanting to look after people nature that I think he could sense. And that's why he was like, yes, you will do pediatrics. This is where you will do well. So he decided that was my specialty.
That was your,
So it was a tough time making that call, and I kind of decided in my last year of school that I would try and do both, like apply for medicine and audition and kind of see what happens. And the conservatoire auditions happen much earlier in the year, and I applied for various music colleges around the UK, but the one that I really, really wanted to go to was the Royal College of Music in London. I knew some amazing teachers there. I just had a really good feeling about that school. It's ranked number 2 in the entire world. And it's situated right opposite the Royal Albert Hall. So it's like in the most inspiring, exciting area of London. And I really didn't think I'd get in. I know how competitive it is. Violin is one of the most popular instruments, therefore one of the most competitive.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of... I'd say violin and piano are probably the 2 most competitive instruments in classical music in general, because there's just so many people play them. So you have to be really, really exceptional to get offered a place. And much to my surprise, I did get offered a place. And that was the moment that I knew I had to see it through. I had to go, which was then quite a difficult conversation to have with the parents, because it was not only I'm not going to pursue medicine, I'm going to pursue music, and I'm moving to London. See you later.
Oh, okay. So there was that added thing of moving away. Yeah. And what about you, Sarah? Did you also go to the Royal College?
So I stayed at home, actually. I went to the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland. And my journey was a little bit easier than Laura's, because it was very obvious from the get-go that I was going to do music. What wasn't obvious was which instrument. And I ended up doing a double major for my undergrad degree on both the piano and the cello. So double the intensity, double the practice hours. But it was very clear early on that it was a musical path. Despite the fact I did excel academically, but I did not like chemistry whatsoever. And that was the one subject that you need to do medicine. I did biology, I did physics, and I excelled in those, but I had zero interest or love for chemistry. So that meant it was game over for medicine early on. So that's why all the attention was then placed into Laura to see if she would become a doctor.
Right. And so what made you pick the cello?
So I was a violinist first. If we're talking about the string family, I was a violin player first.
Right.
Until the age of 13. And age 13 is when I discovered the full symphony orchestra. I went away from home for the first time, band camp, I believe people call it, or residential orchestra courses.
Yeah.
And that's when I heard the full symphony orchestra for the first time. So your brass section, your woodwind, your lower strings, as well as the upper strings and percussion. Right. And that's when I fell in love with the sound of the cello. So I came home from that course and then said, Mom, I would like to swap.
Can I get a cello?
And you can imagine the drama that causes, because age 13 is considered very late to start a new instrument. And we had to consult many musicians, many teachers who looked right down to the size of my fingers, my physique, my height, the car that my mum drives, because it's a lifestyle change and it's a lifestyle choice. And through much resistance from many people, I finally managed to make the switch. Not before I was offered other instruments in the middle, like a viola, which sits between the violin and the cello, as a
Right.
compromise. But I kind of stuck to my love for the cello and made that switch at 13.
I did not realize that all those things would come into play. Had you been younger, would it have been such a complicated choice?
It would have been easier. I mean, they always say that you need to start young in order to
Right.
survive and succeed. So switching or starting a brand new instrument at 13 is really, it's kind of discouraged, or it's unorthodox. But I guess what was on my side was that I already read music. I was already a string
Right.
player, so I was just making small adjustments to
Right.
my technique. I wasn't starting from zero, but there was a lot
Right.
of nervous chatter around the music kind of teacher community that I was going to make that change.
It's so interesting to me because I actually played the clarinet. That's what I started at like, I think we were in like 9 years old when we started learning to play instruments. And from there, when I got to middle school or junior high, I guess I was about 12. And at that point, they started looking at talented musicians, and I use that term loosely, talented, if you've ever been to a school band concert. But they looked for some of us to take on second instruments. And so I was offered the opportunity to learn how to play the bassoon. But I don't recall any conversations about anything like that. It was just you were expected to say yes and learn it we did. So that's fascinating. So here you were able to move into the cello. Do you still have the skills to play the violin?
Uh-oh.
I think it would sound
Huh.
pretty terrible. If I played it upside down, I would probably make a nice tone and a nice vibrato, but under the chin situation, no.
Yeah.
Is the short answer.
Yeah. Laura, did you ever have any desire to move from the violin to any other string instrument?
I did and do sometimes play the viola, which is a total
Oh.
guilty pleasure. I'm not sure if you're aware, but the viola gets a really bad rep in the
It does.
classical world.
Yeah.
It is the butt of many jokes. So people can really often make fun of the instrument and the player. So I'm not saying that's why it was a guilty pleasure, but there's always kind of this like shame of abandoning the violin and going into another instrument. But I kind of love the viola. It's the perfect middle ground between violin and cello. And there was I managed to have access to one during the pandemic, and we noodled a lot of viola and cello, and it was really really fun.
We had
I bet.
more fun than we do playing our regular setup. And I have to admit that
Yeah.
Laura makes a really beautiful sound on the viola, and a much nicer sound than a lot of professional violists that I've heard. She's a natural. Even although she's got a small neck and her fingers are small or thin, but
Yeah.
she makes a very rich sound. And we had a lot of fun playing cello and viola.
Just playing the C string, which is the string the violin doesn't have. The violin stops at G, and then the viola has the same tuning as the cello, but one octave higher. And just that open C string where you can feel your organs vibrating is like a feeling that you don't really get with the violin. You get many other feelings, really, like being able to
soar
but the depth and like the belly of the C string with the cello is quite amazing.
It's like two bears having a conversation.
I bet it would be so fun to join you for a jam session and just watch and listen. And you guys light up when you talk about your music, so it's got to be fun. But tell me about this, because I think this is, when you get beyond, your skill, how did you decide to start performing together as the Ayoub Sisters, as opposed to each taking your own career path?
I don't think we ever sat down and had a meeting and made a decision. There was nothing as formal or calculated as that. There were kind of a series of events that happened that we decided to do together. Probably the most crucial one was a competition that we saw advertised and heard advertised through the radio station Classic FM, which is our really biggest home of classical music here in the UK in particular. And we listened to it a lot growing up. It was always on in my mum's car or in the house.
Right.
And one day there was an advert running on that radio station that said, "Can you see yourself performing at the Royal Albert Hall? Upload your video to our website and enter this competition." And our mum heard it and was like, "Girls, you have to enter this competition." We were like, "What is this? I've never heard of it." Went online and found that there was 2 categories for this competition. There was one for solo acts and there were one for chamber groups, so 2 or more people. And all you had to do was upload 1 performance clip to pass round 1. The initial thought was we would both upload a solo clip in the solo category and compete against each other. And then the logistics involved with having to film 2 videos, and because I play the violin, she was maybe going to accompany me as a pianist in mine. And then we were like, is it more economical to just upload 1, enter the other category?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, what's the name of the group? Oh, we need to come up with a group name. What do we call ourselves? Maybe the Ayoub Sisters, because we were just so like non-creative when it came to that, that kind of world.
Yeah.
And a long story short, there were several rounds over a period of time. And the final round was almost just over 10 years ago, actually. And we won. And the prize was a slot at Classic FM Live at the Royal Albert Hall. They do a big concert every year with their 5,000 plus audience and recorded live for radio play. And our prize was to get to play as part of that concert in 2016. So this is how we mark our 10-year anniversary. And we've just finished our 10-year anniversary now. And that's because 10 years ago, we won a competition with the name the Ayoub Sisters. And without really knowing, that kind of launched our career as a duo.
I can't even begin to imagine what your emotions were and what you were feeling when you were performing at that event 10 years ago. I mean, launching such a beautiful career for both of you, but the accomplishment and something you hadn't even planned. What was that like? And then having the audience applaud for you like that, a 5,000 person audience.
It's funny. We just found 2 clips as we were going through our phone, because we did a post recently about our 10 years, and I found 2 clips. The one of them introducing us onto the stage.
This is their Royal Albert Hall debut.
And the one of the applause after we finally played. And it's taken from my dad's phone, and he sat next to my mum and our uncle who flew in all the way from the US, and like we can hear them cheering, and like it's really difficult to watch that and not tear up, because I do remember the moment so distinctly of hearing applause of that magnitude in a hall that you've always dreamed of playing in, and all of a sudden we're playing together for a radio station that we've listened to our whole lives. Like it was just such a surreal moment. And then listening back to the broadcast and actually being quite happy with how we played, like how we coped under the pressure. I remember like listening back, because it has a delay broadcast, so it was broadcast the next evening, and we were in our kitchen listening with headphones like so intently, like was it okay, did it actually go well, and then being really happy with how it went. So yeah, it was very special.
So you keep alluding to our kitchen, our thing. The 2 of you lived together for a very long time, right? In your own apartment?
Almost the 10 years. Yeah. I moved out finally 2 years ago after what, 9 years of living and working in the same 3x3 room in London.
What is that like for sisters? Because listen, if you're married, you do that. If you're, but 2 sisters. And we all know that no matter how much you love each other and, you're close, there's still all kinds of dynamics there. What was that like? And clearly if you lived together for 9 years, you lived together through COVID. What was all that like for you?
It's a mixture of feelings and emotions. Predominantly, it was a lot of fun because if you just wanted to have a jam, you could at any hour of the day. She's right there. The instruments are there. There was a lot of spontaneous things that happened, spontaneous recordings and videos and kind of arranging and creative things that were not planned, but we were just in the same place. So we were able to do that. It's intense. It's very intense when you're living and working and your siblings in the same environment, and it's in London. So the places are not big. It's quite small. So you get into each other's faces. And there's a cello, which is like having a third person live with you. So I think it was the right time to just spread our wings a little bit and have some elbow room. And it's only been a good thing as well. I think I still love her the same, possibly love her even more that we're like slightly separated, but also creatively having had a little bit of distance and space. I mean, we alluded to a symphony that we just wrote and had its premiere just a couple of months ago. I don't think that symphony would have happened had we been living under the same roof, in each other's faces, with the same kind of experiences and stimuli. It's good to have two different perspectives coming together, having some distance and making conscious efforts to then get together to be creative. I think it forced us to be really productive creatively.
And I actually wanted to ask you about that because I want to talk about your symphony because, wow, you wrote a symphony and it debuted at Celtic Connections in January, which I'm devastated I wasn't there for. But A, how does one write a symphony? Aside from watching Mr. Holland's opus, I do not know, right? So how do you come to jointly write a symphony? Tell me that.
If you go into it saying, I'm going to write a symphony today, you'll run a mile. It's terrifying. It's a huge, tall order to think about. But actually how it started was just seedlings of ideas that we were going to actually write for a piano and violin setup for a different concert that then ended up not happening. It comes with this funny story, but we were asked to play at a concert and we thought, why don't we write something brand new for it? And it can be, we'll make a big thing of it, that it's in a beautiful venue, beautiful theme. Let's write something brand new. And then the concert no longer happened, but we still had the seedlings of ideas. These ideas slowly grew arms and legs, and what was going to be a piano violin sonata, we said, well, wouldn't that piano part sound nicer on a harp? And actually this could be like 4 horns, and actually this could be a sweeping string section. So all of a sudden we just opened up a Sibelius score, which is the software we use to write music, and just put these ideas just for no reason. We don't have a concert, we don't have a deadline, we don't have a commission, but we have ideas. Just put them on pen to paper and see if we can build on it with no agenda. And 2 years, it took 2 years from idea to sending score and parts to orchestra. It became a full-blown 4-movement, half-an-hour symphony just from the ideas of a violin and piano sonata.
Is that perhaps your proudest moment to date of your career, writing the symphony?
I think that Celtic Connections concert to this moment is probably the proudest I've felt of us. And that concert was just amazing for so many reasons. It was with the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, an orchestra that we have watched and grown up watching in Glasgow. They're an amazing orchestra. So we got the chance to play with them and actually completely rewrite our album Arabesque, which we wrote for kind of strings and percussion. Knowing that we had this date with a full symphony orchestra, we rewrote the whole thing to include woodwind and brass and orchestral percussion. So we got to play alongside the full symphony orchestra in the first half of this concert and present an album that we were really proud of, but like the new and improved 4K HD version.
Yeah.
And then sit down in the second half and listen to something that we'd written off the result of what was a lost opportunity. Like if you think about the bare bones of how the symphony happened, it started by thinking we had a concert in this really amazing venue, and then through a lot of toing and froing, the opportunity was taken away, and we could have like sulked about it, but in the end we actually turned that lost opportunity into something really beautiful and creative. So sitting back and watching, you know, one of the world's leading orchestras perform it, and then like sit back as composers, like all in the one evening in Scotland, the place that we owe so much to, that we've grown up, we had our music education there, with family and friends present. Like it was going to be very difficult to top that concert.
It's like one of those things that goes beyond anything you ever could have possibly dreamed of. Yes?
I think so. That's fair to say.
Yeah. So, given the 10 years that you're celebrating, which I think is amazing, and your symphony, is your dad still hoping you'll become Dr. Laura?
Maybe we should ask him. I think that ship has well and truly sailed. He's very proud now, especially a moment like Celtic Connection, seeing what's possible. Obviously, the prestige of being a doctor means a lot in our culture, but also a lot of it comes from the security, knowing that you're going to be okay. You're always going to have a job, and you're going to have a steady paycheck, and it's predictable and it's comfortable.
Right.
Obviously, part of the resistance for us pursuing a career in music is what does that mean? And what does it literally mean financially? Like, how are you supposed to support yourself? And it's an unknown for so many people. So I get the concern. Now I do. I think at the time when I was 17, I just, you know, thought he was being difficult for the sake of it. But I do understand it now. And being 10 years in the industry, we've been through so many different phases in our career. We've been signed to a major label. We've been dropped by a major label. We've gone through a pandemic. We're now out the other end. And the instability of it is really tough. And you have to be so resilient and thick-skinned. And you have to love what you do to persevere through all of the different phases of the industry.
Well, you bring up something that I've never had an opportunity to ask a musician before, and you both play the strings and also piano. What is the longevity of one's fingers and your back and your neck and posture, and how does that play into future decisions you make about your career trajectory?
That is such a good question, possibly something I haven't really kind of dwelled on. I mean, you see and hear of pianists who are still gigging and playing. And actually, we know an Egyptian pianist who's coming to London at the Royal Albert Hall, and he is well into his 80s now. And he's still a rock star. He's flying over, he's performing.
That's exciting.
And still writing and being creative. So I don't tend to think on a daily basis, like, how long are my fingers going to take this? Obviously, carrying the cello is isn't always the most fun. And when you're a pianist, you arrive and the piano is there. It's great. You play, go home. I think it's just maintaining a healthy lifestyle and keeping fit and active and healthy. And there's no reason why your fingers shouldn't keep running. They're muscles at the end of the day, and the more you play, you've got that dexterity and kind of fitness. So it's not something I think about. I probably should, but it's a good question to think about, how long physically or mentally. But actually, I think music keeps us young, and it's a proven.
I love that. Yeah,
it keeps your brain in check, absolutely. And keeps your head and your brain connected. And I think if you're just smart with how you kind of treat your body, you should have a kind of prosperous life and career alongside.
Right. Laura, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think I've noticed over the last few years, I have a bit of a chronic injury that I need to be careful of. And I've noticed it flares up during tours, not because of the playing, but because of the suitcase, because of the dragging. There's like a certain movement that will aggravate it. So, and I've had physio on and off for for 10 years. I think the first time I had issues with this was actually probably longer. Remember I was in high school the first time I went and saw a physiotherapist. So for me, I'm maybe slightly more aware of it because I've had moments where I've like literally not been able to move my neck because I've done one silly movement like getting out of bed and my whole back and neck has seized up. And that's happened a handful of times, but when it does happen, it's absolutely terrifying. Yeah, maintaining your health and keeping fit and doing stretches and taking care of your body, especially during physically intense periods of touring, sleeping in different beds with weird pillows or you know, upright on a flight for 15 hours. I do worry sometimes about how long I will be able to do that before this gets worse, but I'm really just kind of hoping that if I keep doing my exercises like I do and just take care that we will be able to keep doing this for a long time.
I'll tell you, even though I'm not a musician of any sort, I will tell you that I am much more physically fit the older I get, the more active I feel I am. And I think that's because it's not conscious, but I think like somewhere in the crevices of my mind, there's this little old lady screaming, "No, don't sit down. You'll never get up. Keep going." You know, it's like, and I don't want to be a victim of what could be an age-related issue. I want to live. And, you know, and clearly that's what you want to do. How many days a year do you tour and travel?
That's a hard one to quantify because it changes. For example, the last month and a half, we had 10 shows, and that was because we're celebrating a 10-year anniversary. And then the next couple of months, they're more sporadic and they're less intense. So it does change year by year. And the workload as a musician also changes the way it looks. It isn't just live performances. It's also writing. It's also education. There's multiple kind of income streams. So if the worst was to happen and you could no longer play, it's a big chunk of the pie, but there are other musical creative outlets that can still keep you going and not just the physical playing and traveling.
Well, they always tell us to have additional sources of revenue streams, you know, something I didn't learn till I was later in life. There's so much more ahead right after the short break.
You may think this is just a trip. Some sunshine, maybe a glass of wine, a break from your routine. But be warned, you're not on this trip alone. Sisters are closer than they appear. Over there is a woman who's never turned down a dance floor or a dare. Here is a woman who likes the same weird cocktail you like. Right next to you is a woman who hasn't laughed like this in years. Somewhere between shared meals, shared stories, and shared silence, something shifts. You leave not just as friends, but as sisters. The kind that sneak into your heart and stay there. Find your sisters at sisterhoodtravels.com. Just remember, we warned you.
Picking right up where we left off. Now here's a more practical question. How do you transport your very precious instruments on a plane?
Very good question. So most of the time, say at 99% of the time, I will have an additional seat booked next to me in the cabin. So I will have my companion, which will be the cello, which is absolutely great. Doesn't make small talk, doesn't smell bad, doesn't get up in the middle of the flight. Very easygoing.
And doesn't try to take both the armrests either.
No armrests. So it's really straightforward. In the occasions where that's not feasible, there is a flight case, which means it goes in the hold, which is not without its risks. But I try and avoid that at all costs because that case in itself is about 25 kilos. And you're dragging that from venue to venue, from airport to car. And that's where you can have a really silly injury just by doing something. And it's like it weighs a ton. So most of the time it's in the cabin with me.
Do you each have special instruments that were created for you, or on loan to you, or how do you choose the exact instrument that you are playing on?
So I have a violin that is on loan to me that I've been playing on also possibly for 7 years now, which I'm very, very fortunate to be playing on. It's loaned to me by Florian Leonhard, who is a violin maker and dealer. He's very well known in the UK and in the States and actually all over. It's a Galliano. It's a beautiful instrument, and it's quite common that violinists don't own their own instruments, that they're loaned generously through either dealers or kind of what do you call
philanthropists and
or kind of organizations that have a collection of instruments that will give them out depending on personal circumstances. So that is my current situation. I wish to play that violin for a long period of time. I hope I'm able to. Sarah's is a slightly different story.
Mine is a very different story, which basically I was in the market to buy an instrument, and typical me tried loads in the UK and didn't quite find the one. Ended up on holiday in Salzburg, and for a joke, I just said, I'll look up the dealers near the hotel to see if there's anyone around and I could just try for fun. And I ended up going, and the dealer kind of put on the floor a row of like 6 cellos and was like, have a go, see what you think. So I went through them all, and there was one that kind of took to my fancy. It just felt, it's like, what's it called? Not Cinderella.
The glass slipper.
The glass slipper. Or
the glass slipper that fit.
Or the bear and
the porridge.
The porridge.
Let's go with the slipper. So
Goldilocks or whatever. Anyway, it was like,
please don't compare your cello to a bowl of porridge.
Not too big, not too small, not too loud, not too quiet. It just felt just right. And then it was a case of like, I like this cello. How do we bring it back to the UK? And this is going back more than 10 years ago. This is going back 15 years ago, at a time where we didn't have mobile banking. Tech was very simple and basic. So you had to go face value and basically tell the guy, I promise to wire you the money once I get back to the UK, because I'm on holiday and I can only withdraw £500 towards this cello.
Right.
And the guy trusted us. He helped us book an additional seat on the flight home. He wrapped it up, and then we flew back home with this brand new instrument that no one had heard. Because again, when you purchase an instrument, there is a protocol that you take it on trial. You try it out for a couple of weeks to a month or so, where you get to play on it, you get to record on it, you play with a group and see how it responds in situations outside of the showroom, which sounds acoustically gorgeous if you try anything.
Right.
But I didn't have that luxury because I was on holiday and I didn't have a teacher with me. So it was just a gut instinct, and I took it home and I still play it to this day. And people often say, what is that instrument? And where did you get it? And it was like, this was my holiday impulse purchase. But it's stood me well, and it's still there, and it's on every recording that we've released to date.
Wow. So is the longevity of your cello the same as your own, so to speak?
So the longevity of the instrument is how you take care of it and how it's treated. And absolutely, I mean, Laura's violin is from the 1800s.
I know, that's so exciting.
And it's still got longevity. My instrument was born in 2007, so it's still brand new and can have so much longevity. It's
still a baby.
It's still a baby and can go down from generations to generations. So absolutely, these instruments can last a very long time and have many lives and many people playing them.
And often appreciate it in value.
And in sound.
As time goes on.
And sound as well.
Right.
Like fine wine.
There you go. Now, I'd like to pivot just a little bit and go back to your symphony and your writing, because I'm curious how, while you're sisters, you work together, you each have your own emotions and your feelings and I guess, similar but different hearts. So how do you combine all of that into writing a cohesive music?
It's like a really fun game of tennis. to kind of put a metaphor to it. You're batting ideas back and forth, and you want to keep this rally going. You want to keep this rally going between the two. And writing this symphony, it very much felt like a collaborative game. I would start off with an idea. I'd pass it on to Laura. She would maybe do some things to it, pass it back, and we'd keep going until we were happy with how this was sounding. Often we would have different ideas on how something should go. So that's when you do a smash and then the game ends for a second. And then you reconvene.
Do a smash.
Play a smash.
Yeah. Is that the technical term?
It's called a smash.
Yeah.
And that kind of, that's where you have the two heads trying to come together. But we had the common goal and we wanted the common output and end result.
Yeah.
And it's just, maybe you have two different ways of getting there, but it was just that kind of back and forth game of tennis.
Right. So do you feel, as you move forward, that there are more symphonies in your future?
I think so. I enjoyed the process. I found it difficult. I definitely would hold my hand on my heart and say it was not an easy process that just flowed without its difficulties, which some creative endeavors have just flown, and it was really easy. And I thought, this is just feels like walking, me in my element. I did not feel like this with the symphony. It was the most challenging thing personally I have ever done, which also made it the most rewarding thing ever, actually hearing it played and thinking of persevering, of I don't know what should happen after this bit, or this transition is not sitting well, or this groove is not sitting right. What do we do? And all of the troubleshooting, and actually persevering through all of it, and not just kind of parking it, forgetting about it because it was too hard. I was really proud that we saw it through to the end, and the end product is something that I would listen to and that I'm actually quite enjoying listening to, which in itself is a miracle, because at so many points I was like, this sounds terrible. Who would listen to this? I do think I would try and write another one. I mean, this one was very much an Arabic symphony. It was completely inspired by Arabic themes and grooves and Arabic instruments, particularly in the percussion family. And it had such a distinct and tangible inspiration that it was quite, we had so many different places to start. Each movement was kind of inspired by a different region. That is how we write best, I think, when we have a clear source of inspiration. Maybe next is to write something inspired by our Scottish upbringing. Maybe that would make sense, and again, we'd have something really clear to kind of draw inspiration from. I don't know what's next, but I would at some point. I think it's too soon. Right now, it's too soon.
Too
we
soon.
need to get the thing recorded first. But at some point, I would like to lock ourselves away, and we work really best when we do lock ourselves away. So yes, the symphony took 2 years, but if I actually think of the concise periods of time that we locked ourselves away, it's probably a handful of months, actually. The condensed writing periods. We would go home for 2 weeks. We would not change out of our pajamas. We wouldn't see a single soul. We'd only go for one walk a day, if that, because the weather was usually bad to even go outside. And we would do a really solid chunk of writing. And then we'd leave it, and then we'd go on tour for a couple of months, and we wouldn't really think about it. And then we'd put in the diary, we've put a writing retreat in. Okay, this time she's going to come to mine. And same again, we're probably not going to leave the house. We're going to not practice or touch our instruments because this is a writing phase. And that's really how we work best, I've found, over the 10 years, when we really just have a condensed plan, time frame, and deadline. We love a good deadline. That's when we work the best.
Do you ever wake up in the morning and just regardless of writing a symphony, but do you ever just wake up in the morning and go, I don't feel like playing today?
Oh, yeah. That happens. And I think that's only natural. You get fatigue.
Yeah.
Even writers' fatigue of I can't open my laptop.
Oh my gosh,
today.
yeah.
And then you get the opposite, where you wake up with the idea in your head and you will not have breakfast until you've written it down. And then there are days where you just want to play your instrument and you're like, wow, it's been 4 hours and I'm having a great time. So you get Yeah.
How did you get the idea? I just have to ask you this, and I meant to ask you earlier. What inspired you to do what you did with Uptown Funk? Because personally, I love it, but where did that come from? Because that kind of started you a little bit on this path of fame and fortune, shall we say, but where'd you get that from?
It's going back to, again, when Laura said guilty pleasures. So we loved jamming. We are classically trained. We play classical instruments, very strict classical regime, but we love jamming. We love playing R&B, pop, you name it, on our classical instruments in a practice room or in the living room for fun, before we then get back to, doing our technique and our scales and concertos. So it was always a fun, guilty pleasure that we do in the background. And I guess with Uptown Funk, it was the first time that the guilty pleasure came out of the practice room and actually was shared online as a video. Even although the arrangement itself, the very first arrangement that we ever did, was very simple. It was literally two people jamming, having fun.
Right.
And then that had the kind of ripple effect of tapping into this crossover world, writing arrangements for then full orchestra. But yeah, it stemmed from this kind of us doing something cheeky and slightly naughty compared to our other classical peers.
Right. Kind of like a break from reality a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, or a breath of fresh air. Like when you've been practicing like a really difficult piece for so long and you want a break, but not necessarily a break from the instrument, but like a break from that kind of cycle of practice, and doing something like just having a jam could just revitalize and re-energize the love for music for a second to then persevere throughout the next kind of 3-hour cycle of practice.
So now I'm very excited to hear that you have a new single being released. Is it March 6th on International Women's Day? Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Gosh, this single has been cooking for a very long time. And it's all part of our 10-year celebration, celebrating us and where we come from. And we wanted to do something a little bit unorthodox, as we always do, with a piece of classical music that many people will recognize. But we wanted to give it a bit of an Arabic and Asian spin. So it's a piece by Vivaldi. It's from the Four Seasons, but we kind of wanted to play on the rhythmical playfulness of the piece and incorporate Arabic percussion and Indian tabla to just give it a completely different flavor, essentially. So we're really excited.
I cannot wait to hear this. Let me ask you something. Have you thought about your impact that the two of you have on younger girls who are interested in music but don't necessarily see it as a pathway for them, or perhaps have parents who don't see it as a pathway for them?
Yeah, we're conscious of the difficulties. I'm going to just speak from the perspective of the Arabic culture, because that is what we know. The struggles that I personally had with, the career path and what it means. And I know several young girls and boys from a similar cultural upbringing face that daily. And I would consider myself quite lucky that, yes, there was a turbulent couple of years, but I got out the other side. I did go to the Royal College of Music and I did pursue music, and my parents encouraged me throughout that journey, and we're in a good place now.
Right.
That is quite a rare outcome of this whole narrative.
And to add to that, this is Laura talking about going into career. Rewind to even a child just picking up an instrument as a hobby. That is also not endorsed. Forget about career. Career is another story, but even just having it in the house as an extracurricular activity, as an outlet, as a creative thing, it's also not encouraged within our community.
I did not know that.
It depends. If it's like you're supposed to be doing homework, you're supposed to be studying, you're supposed to be reading, you're supposed to be expanding your mind. Often playing violin for an hour is considered a detraction from that, not an asset. Something that is expanding your mind, something that is teaching you skills beyond necessarily what you're learning in your academics. That's when it may not be encouraged. Again, there's extremes on both ends and there's a middle ground.
Yeah.
But knowing and hearing so many stories and meeting lots of younger generation Arabic kids, that is the case. A lot of the times it's considered, a waste of time, rather than you're actually refining yourself as a human being and learning life skills completely beyond what the academics are teaching you at school. So it's a very deep rooted issue that needs kind of years of reframing the narrative. So picking up an instrument or playing in an orchestra or singing in a choir is seen as something that is going to help you become a well-rounded individual.
Yeah, it's a value add to your life, not a...
Yes, rather than, you're like seeing it as you've been on the PlayStation for hours, like putting them in the same camp of just like a pastime, fun with no real benefit. And then now gamers probably will come at me and be like, no, but this is important. And maybe they're right.
Yeah, right. No,
I'm not going to speak on their behalf either, but it's funny. I feel very conflicted about it because like we had a certain experience. We know hundreds of stories of other people's experiences. We are now at a point in our career where we are known in the Arab world, and we do now get a lot of parents that say to us at the end of concerts, we're so proud and we want our kids to be like you. And that's a really challenging thing to be told sometimes, because at the root of it, I'm kind of like, do you really mean that? And are you treating your child in that way? That actually, are you encouraging them, or are you proud of us because we've been on TV and we're flying the flag for the Middle East? It's a difficult one. I don't know if you want to add to this in a way that I'm not articulating.
No,
properly.
I think you've articulated it. It's weird. I think when someone excels at something, the nation gets behind them. Whether it's in football, we've got a very famous Egyptian footballer who's now kids are endorsed to play sports, and sports has actually been encouraged much more so than music has.
But when Mohammed Salah was training in Egypt as a child, was he encouraged? Was he told, you have to do your homework, stop wasting time outside? Or is it now that he's representing Egypt on an international level, playing for Liverpool, that now... It's like a chicken and egg. You don't just become Mohammed Salah. Like you have to have the years of the training, and to then give yourself a fighting chance to become at a point where you can be recognized in an international arena.
That is an interesting dilemma. I've read a lot in the past about tiger moms. It's a term they use for, Asian moms who are just like academic, and how the demands are just suffocating and so overwhelming in that area. It seems to me that your parents were very unique in your culture, that they even allowed you to and encourage you to at least start with the music as a hobby.
Yeah, they definitely were very unique in allowing us and encouraging us and trusting that we would find the time in the day to get everything done. So we would study, we would do our homework, we would practice. And this is what I would say to those that their children are perhaps interested. Trust that they're going to work hard to fulfill everything that they need to at this point in their life. Right. Children are so capable of being able to do multiple things. And I think the worry is, if you're not spending out every minute of the day on your studies, then you're going to fail your exams and you won't get into university. No, we were taken out of academic classes to have our music lessons. We missed out on school, and we caught up in our own time and still excelled. And you know, if you give a child a challenge, they will rise to it. So
Yes.
yeah, I think
Yes.
it's having the faith and the courage to allow a child to kind of create what they want in their life and to spend time in each place, and it's all gonna help. It's all for the bigger picture.
Yes. To me, there's two things that are the major languages of the world. One is smiling, because everyone understands a smile. And I think music is the other. Even if I don't happen to like a particular style of music, it's still possible it can reach my heart at some point. I don't need to know what's being said. I don't need to know the mechanics of it, but I know how it makes me feel. I think that's true with all art, really. But as we come to an end here, I think my biggest question for you is, what message do you want your music to bring to the world? And what do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, those are big questions.
I know, I'm a tough one, aren't I? These things just pop out of nowhere.
I think I can answer the first one.
No, I want to.
Okay.
Okay.
And I think this has been the case from the beginning when we started playing together, that our music doesn't fit in a box. We don't fit in a box as people. We are Scottish, Egyptian, we are classically trained playing different genres. And I think our music reflects this kind of diversity and coming together of different styles, cultures, nationalities, and flavors. And we hope that that music in turn speaks to many people and brings different people together in that universal language that you just spoke about, and doesn't discriminate. Everyone is welcome.
Be still my heart, because I love that. And I think your music is doing that, from my perspective. I never listen to music myself and think of division, but like it doesn't even come into my head, although we certainly know that there are people who do. But that is a very wonderful message for the world to hear. Laura, has she assigned you question number 2?
Yeah, in a way, the legacy kind of ties in with what you said, which is I'd love for, as long as we are performing and writing music, that what we write and how we present it is always going to be in a format and environment that brings different people together. So this Arabic symphony, for example, I would love for the Arabic population, a lot of them that don't necessarily ever go to a concert hall to see an orchestra, and if they do, very rarely will listen to the music or watch the musicians on stage and feel like they've been represented in any way. Just historically speaking, doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
And in terms of legacy or life goals, I'd love to keep making music and presenting them in concerts where, just speaking from our heritage, the Arabic community, whether it's little girls or, you know, a giddo, a grandfather, will walk in and listen and watch and see the people around them and think like, oh yeah, there's so-and-so from the, you know, like there's a community. Yeah. There's a community that, historically speaking, hasn't been represented or even celebrated. So I want us to continue celebrating our culture and our heritage through music, because it's the only way we know how. And, you know, in 100 years' time, I hope this symphony continues to be played, or music that we've written continues to be programmed, and the future generation of Arabs keep going to concert halls and thinking, you know, oh, there's something that I can relate to, and there's something that I feel like represents me.
And I think that's quite a legacy to leave. I really do. First of all, I can't tell you how much I enjoy you both, and I learned so much from you. Do you have any tours happening in the US?
That is the eternal question. We are working on it. We're really trying hard. It's not straightforward.
I
It's
know.
not easy. We'd love to, and we have a lot of family there, a lot of friends there,
Yeah.
and we have a desire to go, and we are working on it behind the scenes. So watch the space.
Always, always. And of course, we are going to put all of your website and your YouTube and all the things that you provide for us. We are going to put on our show notes. Where will we find on March 6th your new single?
So the single will be released on all digital streaming platforms. It's called Summer, and the music video will follow on International Women's Day, which is the 8th of March, and features two
Right.
very inspiring women, one from Palestine and one from India. And finding these two women was not easy, and we really were keen on this lineup to be an all-female,
Yes.
empowering moment, playing traditional classical music in a way that has been completely reimagined. And these two ladies did an incredible job, and they're showcased so amazingly in the musical arrangement, but also in the video. So that will be on our YouTube channel, and that will come out on the 8th of March on International Women's Day.
I'm so excited, and I will be sure to make sure, even outside of this podcast, that everyone I know is aware of it. But I hope I see you both again much sooner rather than later. Laura and Sarah, thank you so, so much for joining me today. You know, I love classical music, and every once in a while I'll meet someone that goes, "Ugh, I don't like classical music." And I've actually said to them, don't say that, because there's so many variations of classical music. You ladies are a perfect example of that. The way you incorporate pop and funk and cultural elements into your music. Thank you so much for sharing about your lives and your journey. And I hope I get to see you again very soon.
Thanks so much for having us.
Nice to see you.
If you liked this show, please be sure to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, give us a review, because it really helps grow our podcast.